The moon spilled across the lake like a trembling mirror, silver and still, rippling only when the wind sighed through the trees. I remember that night, the first time I saw the widow with the lantern. She stood by the water's edge, her long white hair flowing down her shoulders, her frail hands cupping a flickering light trapped inside an old glass lantern. From where I stood, she looked less like a person and more like a memory caught between this world and the next. The town of Havenridge was quiet that evening. Only the rustle of maple leaves and the distant chime of the church bell broke the silence. The air carried the scent of wet earth and fallen leaves, that familiar perfume of October, when everything feels both alive and fading at once. I walked slowly down the narrow dirt path that curved toward the lake, a place I went to when sleep refused to come. The locals called it Mirror's Rest, a lake so still it seemed to hold secrets beneath its surface. Some said the water remembered voices, that if you whispered your sorrow to it, the wind would carry your words to those you'd lost. The stories always mentioned her, the lantern widow. They said she appeared every Halloween, guiding lost souls back home with her light. No one knew her name. No one knew why she wandered, but everyone agreed she wasn't dangerous. Just waiting, that as I approached the shore, I felt the familiar calm wash over me, the kind that softens the edges of thought. I sat down on a wooden bench beneath an old willow tree, the kind that droops like it's listening. The surface of the lake shimmered faintly, mirroring the golden glow of her lantern. Her voice reached me like a breeze, moving through tall grass, fragile and ancient. "Don't fear the light, child," it whispered. "It only guides what has been left unsaid." I opened my eyes, but she was gone. Only the lantern remained, hanging from a branch above the water. Its flames swayed gently, scattering halos of gold that danced across the lake's reflection. I leaned back, breathing in slowly. Inhale and exhale. Let your thoughts drift like the moonlight on water. It was a habit I had learned on nights like this, whispering to myself as if I were trying to calm another person inside me. The stillness wrapped around me like a blanket. Even the chill of the air felt kind, familiar, grounding. For a long while, I just sat there, letting the quiet fill me. And then, somewhere between thought and dream, I began to remember my mother's old stories. How she once said that every lantern carried two lights, one for the living and one for the lost. Maybe that's what the lantern widow carried with her. Not grief, not sorrow, but memory, a reminder that even in the darkest places, something still burns softly, refusing to go out. The church bell rang again, distant and slow. Each chime seemed to echo through the still night, like footsteps from another time. I looked across the lake once more, half expecting to see her standing there again, but there was nothing, only mist, and that faint golden shimmer of her fading flame. The wind stirred the leaves around my feet. One of them brushed my shoe and stopped, as if deciding whether to move on. I smiled faintly. The world felt alive in its quietness, every sound deliberate, every shadow gentle. Maybe that's why she came here each year, not to haunt, but to watch, to wait for something she had lost long ago, and perhaps to remind those of us still searching that even silence has a light of its own. I rose from the bench, tucking my hands into my coat pockets. The lantern's glow lingered behind me as I walked back up the hill toward town. The cobblestones glistened under the moonlight, wet with dew. I could still feel her presence. Not frightening, but strangely comforting, like a warmth that follows you long after the fire is gone. When I reached my doorstep, I turned back one last time. The lake shimmered faintly in the distance. The willow swayed, and for a moment, I thought I saw her standing there again, just a Celia, holding her light against the wind. Perhaps she was real, or perhaps she was something that lived only in the spaces between sleep and waking. But as I closed my eyes that night, I saw her lantern's glow still burning, soft and golden, behind my eyelids, guiding me gently toward the kind of sleep where dreams drift like mist on water. As the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. Asterisk. The next evening arrived with the same hush that always settled over Heaven Ridge before the first frost. The air smelled of pine and distant rain, the kind that waits patiently at the edge of the sky. I had not planned to return to the lake so soon, yet something gentle and unspoken pulled me thereas, if the night itself whispered my name. When I reached Mira's Rest, the world seemed slower. The water was still, the willow unmoving, the lantern gone. Only the faint outline of footprints lingered in the soft soil, leading from the bench toward a narrow trail that curved behind the old chapel ruins. I had walked this path many times, but that night it felt different, almost sacred, like following a memory that did not belong to me. The ground was carpeted with dry leaves that crunched softly beneath my boot. Fireflies drifted lazily in the air, their glow pulsing like forgotten heartbeats. The further I walked, the quieter everything became, until all that remained was the sound of my own breathing, rhythmic and oddly calming. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird sang, its voice echoing like a lullaby for ghosts. And then, beneath the sound, I heard something else, a faint melody, so fragile it could have been imagined. It came from beyond the trees, a tune hummed by a woman's voice. It was neither joyful nor mournful, just steady, patient, as though it had been waiting to be heard for a very long time. I followed the sound until I reached a clearing where an old stone bridge arched over a narrow creek. The moonlight spilled across its surface like silk, and there, leaning against the bridge's edge, was the lantern. Its glass was cracked, its handle rusted, but inside, a soft flame flickered steady and golden. The melody stopped. I hesitated before touching the lantern, as if it might vanish if I reached too quickly. But the flame did not waver. Instead, a warmth spread through my fingertips, not from the fire itself, but from something deeper, like the echo of a touch long remembered. And then a whisper, not from behind me, but inside my mind. You came back. Her voice was softer this time, almost tired. I looked around, but no one was there. Only the rustle of leaves answered. "Why do you walk this path?" I murmured quietly. The flame flared once, briefly illuminating the name carved into the bridge's stone. Clara Wren, 1923. The same year, the stories said the widow first appeared. I sat beside the bridge, resting the lantern on the ground. The creek babbled gently, carrying reflections of the moon and stars. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. letting the sound lull me. Inhale and exhale. Let go of the day. Feel the earth beneath you, the steady rhythm of the night around you. When I opened my eyes again, the world felt softer, blurred around the edges like a dream. The air shimmered faintly. Across the creek, a woman stood in the mist, wearing a shawl the color of faded ivory. Her face was pale, her eyes distant yet kind. "Clara," I whispered. She nodded once, her expression unreadable. Her hands reached toward the lantern, but they never touched it. Instead, her gaze lingered on me, heavy with something between sorrow and relief. "I waited," she said softly. "Every year, I waited for him to come back." "Your husband?" I asked. She smiled faintly, but tears shimmered in her eyes. "No, Anne, my son. He went to the war and never returned. They told me to move on. But how do you move on when your heart still walks the road he left on?" Her words floated in the air like dust caught in light. I wanted to speak, but the lump in my throat held me still. The flame in the lantern flickered, glowing brighter. "Every Halloween," she continued, "I lit this light to guide him home. I thought perhaps he was lost. Or maybe I was." The night seemed to listen. Even the creek grew quiet, as though honoring her story. "But tonight," she whispered, "I see now the light was never for him. It was for me to find peace." Her figure began to fade with the mist, dissolving into the moonlight. The lantern's flame softened until it became a faint, steady glow, eternal. I sat there long after she was gone, the air thick with the scent of old rain and ash. A warmth lingered in my chest. Not sadness, but something further acceptance, perhaps. I realized then that some hauntings are not curses, but promises kept too long. When I finally stood, the lantern's flame went out, yet the night did not feel empty. It felt whole. As I walked back toward the lake, I could almost hear her voice one last time. "Go home. Rest now." The path shimmered faintly in the moonlight, guiding my steps like threads of silver. And for the first time in many nights, my heart felt quiet. As the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. The next morning arrived quietly, wrapped in a veil of mist that drifted across the lake like unspoken words. The world outside my window was painted in soft grays and silver, the kind of morning that feels half asleep, as if the earth itself was still dreaming. I brewed a cup of tea and stood by the window, watching the steam curl upward like a ghostly whisper. I couldn't stop thinking about Clara, Renda, Lantern Widow, and the way her voice had lingered in the air long after her figure vanished. All through the day, it felt a pull, gentle but persistent, urging me to return to Miri's rest once more. The story felt unfinished, like a melody missing its final note. As twilight deepened, I wrapped a scarf around my neck and set out toward the lake again. The air was colder now, carrying that crisp edge that hints at winter's approach. The leaves crunched beneath my boots in soft rhythm, and in that sound, I felt a strange comfort, as if nature itself was keeping me company. When I reached the old bridge, the creek murmured softly, the same lullaby as before. But something was different. There, nestled between two stones, near where the lantern had rested, was a small tin box, its metal rusted, its edges softened by time. My hands trembled slightly as I picked it up. The lid opened with a faint creak, revealing a folded piece of parchment tied with faded blue ribbon. Inside was a letter, written in elegant, looping handwriting. The ink had bled in places, but the words were still legible. October 31st, 1923. If anyone finds this light, know that it once guided a heart that could not forget. I lit it each year for my boy, Samuel, who left for France and never came home. They said he fell in battle, but no grave was ever found. So I waited by this lake, believing that light could cross even the distance between worlds. If you are reading this, please remember love is not the chain that binds us, but the flame that sets us free. Clara Renmei? Breath caught as I finished reading. The paper trembled in my hand, fragile as a fallen leaf. There was something about her words, simple, quiet, yet carrying the weight of a century of Wadian that sank deep into my chest. I sat by the bridge, the letter resting on my lap. The water below reflected the early moon, shimmering like a restless dream. The world felt suspended, no time, no sound, just the heartbeat of the earth beneath me. I closed my eyes. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Let the cool air calm your thoughts. Feel the stillness around you. When I opened my eyes again, the lantern was there standing upright beside me, though I hadn't brought it. Its flame glowed softly, steady and golden, as if answering the pulse of the night. And then I heard it again, the faint melody Clara had hummed before, drifting through the air like a lullaby for souls. But this time the song was not alone. Another voice joined Itaman's, low and distant, yet filled with warmth. Their voices intertwined, rising and falling together like the wind through tall grass. I felt a shiver trace my spine, not from fear, but from something sacred, a moment where love, loss, and peace all met in silence. When the song faded, the lantern's light flickered once more, then dimmed to a soft glow. I could almost see them, two silhouettes standing together at the edge of the bridge, hand in hand, their lantern between them, no longer searching, no longer waiting. And then, slowly, they faded into the mist. The lantern's flame went out completely, leaving only the scent of rain and the faintest echo of their voices. Folded the letter carefully and placed it back inside the tin box. Then I buried it beneath the willow tree, right beside the lake where her story began. The soil was cool and damp beneath my hands, grounding me, anchoring me to something older than words. As I stood, the night sky began to open, stars blooming like small lanterns in the distance. The moon rose higher, calm and full, casting its light over the lake in long, trembling reflections. I realized then that the light Clara carried had never truly gone out. It had only changed form, finding new hearts to illuminate. Walking back toward town, I felt a strange sense of peace. The road shimmered under the moonlight, and the sound of the water followed me like a quiet blessing. When I reached home, I placed a candle on my windowsill and lit it not for loss, but for remembrance. That night, as I lay in bed, I could still hear the faint hum of her song carried on the wind, mingling with the soft rustle of the trees outside. My eyelids grew heavy, my thoughts drifting like leaves on water, and just before sleep claimed me, I whispered softly into the quiet, "Rest now, Clara." Your light found its way home as the story fades. Allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. Asterisk, the candle on my windowsill burned quietly through the night, its small flame trembling like a heartbeat in the dark. Outside, the world was asleep, the streets empty, the trees whispering in the cold October wind. Yet somehow, I felt I wasn't alone. There was a presence in that silence, not haunting, but watchful, gentle, and familiar like the echo of a lullaby you once knew by heart. When dawn came, the candle had melted down to a shallow pool of wax, its wick leaning softly to one side. I stood before it for a long moment, unsure why I felt a strange pull to light it again. Perhaps it was habit, or perhaps it was hope. Either way, I struck a match and let the flame return to life. Its glow filled the room with a quiet warmth that felt older than time itself. That morning, as I walked through the town, I noticed something unusual. In several windows along Main Street, candles flickered softly, dozens of them like tiny echoes of my own. The baker, the librarian, even old Mr. Hendricks from the post office all had candles glowing faintly behind their glass panes. At first, I thought it coincidence, until I realized each flame seemed to burn with the same slow, steady rhythm. It was as if the whole town was breathing together, one shared heartbeat pulsing through every light. I stopped at the general store, where Mrs. Penfield stood arranging chrysanthemums in the window. Strange morning, isn't it? Primera saye, gently. She looked up and smiled, her eyes distant. Yes, though it feels peaceful somehow. I woke before dawn and felt like I had to light one. Haven't done that since I was a girl. I nodded, though neither of us could explain why. By afternoon, the sky had turned pale gray, the kind of sky that feels hollow and endless. A soft drizzle began to fall, wrapping the town in a veil of mist. I made my way back home, my boots leaving faint prints on the wet cobblestones. The moment I stepped inside, the air felt different, warmer, fuller. The candle still burned on the sill, its light reflected in the glass like a small sun trapped between worlds. And then I saw it something faint, just beyond the reflection. A woman's outline, delicate and blurred, standing by the willow tree near the lake. My breath caught in my chest. Clara Wren. Her figure shimmered faintly in the distance, her face serene, her hands resting over her heart. She didn't move, didn't speak, only watched as though she was waiting for something unseen. I pressed my hand to the cold glass. "Clara?" I whispered. The wind stirred, and for a moment the candle's flame danced wildly, as if answering her. Then, just as softly, it steadied again. The image faded, swallowed by the mist outside. But in that instant, I felt something understanding, that this light was no longer just hers. It had become something larger, spreading from one soul to another, connecting the living and the lost in quiet harmony. That evening, as twilight returned, the whole town glowed. From every window, porch, and lantern posts, candles shimmered like constellations fallen to earth. The air was filled with stillness, no noise, no hurry, only the gentle hum of togetherness. I wandered down to the lake once more. The reflection of hundreds of tiny flames floated on the water, trembling and golden. It was breathtaking, a sea of stars beneath the surface. I sat by the willow tree and closed my eyes. Breathe in the calm, breathe out the worry. Let the world slow until all that remains is peace. The scent of rain mixed with the faint sweetness of burning wax. Somewhere in the distance, I thought I heard the soft hum of Clara's voice again, carried by the wind across the water. But this time, it wasn't sorrowful, it was light, almost holy, as if she was no longer alone. I whispered into the quiet, "They remember you, Clara. They always will." As I rose to leave, a gentle glow spread from the willows roots, a faint golden shimmer that pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. For a brief moment, I thought I saw two lanterns resting side by side beneath the branches, their lights entwined. But when I blinked, they were gone. Only the reflection of the moon remained, calm and steady. I walked home through the mist, the town's soft light guiding me, the night air wrapped around me like a blanket, and the distant sound of the water lulled my thoughts into stillness. When I reached my porch, I looked once more at the candle in my window, its flame unwavering, patient and alive. I understood then that it wasn't meant to chase away the dark, it was meant to honor it, because even in shadow, light finds its meaning. That night, as I slipped beneath my blanket, I felt peace settle over me like a warm tide. My breathing slowed, my thoughts quieted, and the flicker of the candle's glow played softly across the room. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let your heart rest easy. The light will keep you safe tonight. As sleep finally embraced me, I thought I heard a whisper in the distance, calm and full of gratitude. Thank you for remembering the light. And with that, the world faded into the soft rhythm of dreams, the kind that feel like coming home. Morning came quietly. Dressed in silver mist, the town lay beneath a soft veil of fog, as though the world had paused between dream and waking. From my porch I could see the faint outline of the willow tree down by the lake, its branches swaying gently in the damp breeze. The candle still burned on the windowsill behind me, steady, calm. Alive, Something inside me urged to return to the lake. There was a pull, tender and magnetic, as though the water itself was calling. I wrapped a shawl around my shoulders, the fabric cool with dew, and began the slow walk down the narrow path that curved past the old barns and across the wooden bridge. Every step felt deliberate, every breath deep and measured. The air smelled of rain and fallen leaves, a scent that carried memory, sorrow, and comfort all at once. When I reached the edge of the lake, the world seemed to hush. The water was perfectly still, holding its surface like glass. The faint glow of hundreds of candle reflections shimmered there, drifting like fireflies in a dream. I sat by the willow and listened. At first, it was only silence. Then a whisper began to rise, not from the trees, but from the water itself. It was a soft layered murmur, like dozens of voices speaking at once, yet none distinct. It didn't frighten me. Rather, it felt ancient, familiar. The whispers seemed to breathe with the rhythm of the ripples, each sound melting into the next, gentle, patient, and full of meaning beyond words. I leaned closer to the water. "What are you trying to tell me?" I whispered. A breeze stirred the surface. The reflection of the willows stretched, shimmered, and for a fleeting instant, I thought I saw faces some I recognized from old photographs. Some I didn't. They appeared not as ghosts, but as memories, fragile and beautiful, held tenderly within the water's embrace. Then I saw her, Clara Wren. Her image rippled just beneath the surface, her eyes luminous with the calm of someone who has found peace at last. She was smiling, her lips parting slightly as though she wanted to speak. "Clara," I said softly, "are you free now?" The wind sighed through the branches above me, and her reflection shimmered once more. Then, in the faintest of whispers, I heard it remember what the light is for. I closed my eyes, letting her words sink deep into the quiet places of my mind. The light is for remembering. It wasn't about driving away darkness, it was about connection, about keeping the fragile thread between the living and the lost alive through memory and compassion. When I opened my eyes, the reflection had faded, but the feeling lingered, a warmth beneath my ribs, slow and steady. The water lapped gently against the shore, as if in agreement. I took a deep breath, feeling the peace settle over me like a soft blanket. Behind me, the church bell chimed once, its echo rolling over the hills. The sound was deep and low, almost like a sigh. I looked up to see others gathering along the lake's edge, old and young, holding lanterns or candles in quiet reverence. No one had spoken a word, yet somehow everyone had felt the same call. Together, we stood in silence, the reflection of our lights stretching across the water like a living constellation. It was then I realized Daytown wasn't haunted by sorrow, it was held by love. Each flicker of light, each reflection was a promise kept across time. A mother for her child, a husband for his lost wife, a friend for another who never came home. The lantern widow wasn't a ghost at all. She was the keeper of memory, guiding us to remember, to forgive, to rest. As dusk fell once more, I lingered by the willow. The mists deepened, wrapping the lake in shades of violet and gray. The lantern's glow danced upon the rippling water, merging into one vast shimmer of gold. I closed my eyes again and listened, not for words this time, but for presence, for stillness. Breathe in the peace. Breathe out the ache. Let the calm settle where fear once lived. The whispers grew softer, fading into the steady hum of the evening. Somewhere among them, I thought I heard laughter, gentle, distant, like a memory set free. I smiled through tears I hadn't realized were there. The weight I'd carried for so long began to lift, replaced by something lighter, almost luminous. When I finally turned to leave, the town behind me glowed faintly through the mist, every window alive with warmth. The candle in my own window flickered once, ten steadied, as if welcoming me home. I whispered one last time to the lake, "Thank you, Clara." "Clara?" The water shimmered, and for a heartbeat the reflection of two lights appeared side by side beneath the willow. Then, As the first stars pierced the evening sky, the whispers faded entirely, leaving only the sound of soft ripples and the rhythm of my own calm breath. That night, I slept deeply, peacefully, with the memory of the lake's song echoing faintly in my dreams, a lullaby for the living, sung by those who never truly left. Asterisk night had fallen once again, but it was a gentler darkness this time. The storm clouds that had loomed over the town for days had finally drifted east, and a calm silver moon now hung over the valley. From my window I could see the lake glimmering faintly between the willow branches. The candle I had carried down to the shore earlier still burned on the windowsill beside me, its flame steady and sure, reflecting softly in the glass. The air smelled faintly of lavender and smoke from distant chimneys, an aroma that carried both endings and beginnings. I sat there in silence, listening to the rhythmic hum of the night. Crickets sang in the tall grass. An owl called from the ridge, and far away, a train moaned its lonely song as it wound through the hills. Everything around me seemed alive and awake, even in stillness. It felt as though the entire world was breathing slowly with me. One calm inhale, one gentle exhale. The memory of the lake still lingered in my thoughts. The shimmer of land, the quiet gathering of townsfolk, Clara's voice whispering through the mist. I had not dreamed her. I knew that now. But she wasn't a ghost that haunted the living. She was the breath between life and memory, the space where grief turns to grace. Every town, every soul, has someone like Hera, keeper of stories, waiting to remind us that love doesn't vanish. It simply changes its shape. I wrapped my shawl tighter around my shoulders and looked at the candle again. The flame danced lightly in the draught, bending and straightening as though it was breathing, too. Then, without really deciding to, I whispered, "You can rest now, Clara." The words felt both like a prayer and a promise. As I spoke them, the flame seemed to flare brighter, tense ned, releasing a thin curl of smoke that spiraled upward toward the ceiling. It was beautiful, weightless, and peaceful. For a brief moment, I thought I saw her silhouette in the smoke, a woman standing by the willow, her lantern raised one last time before fading into dawn. I didn't move. I just watched, smiling faintly, letting the tears fall freely. They weren't tears of sadness anymore. They were a release and exhale of everything I had held for too long. Outside, the wind carried the faint sound of bells, soft melodic, like chimes swaying from the church steeple. Each note felt like a goodbye, yet also like a welcome. The town was sleeping now, every home lit by its own little flame, every window glowing faintly against the night. It was as if the entire valley had become a constellation of remembrance. The ghosts of loss had not left us. They had joined us quietly in the light. I closed my eyes and listened again to the sounds of the night, the slow creak of old wood, the rustle of leaves, the distant lap of water against the shore. Each sound carried a message, a rhythm that reminded me of the way my mother used to hum lullabies when I was a child. The memory wrapped around me like a blanket. There, in that moment, I felt something shift deep within. The fear that had once knotted in my chest dissolved. The loneliness that had shadowed me for years lightened, as though the presence of every loved one I'd ever lost had gathered gently around me. They didn't need to speak. Their silence was enough. I stood, walked to the window, and opened it slightly. The cool night air brushed against my face, carrying the scent of earth and rain. The candle flickered in response, but did not go out. I breathed in deeply, filling my lungs with the peace of the night. Across the lake, I saw the faintest shimmer of light move between the trees. It wasn't eerie now. It was comforting, like a soft pulse of the earth itself. Perhaps it was Clara's lantern, finding its way home. The moon dipped lower, and the first pale light of dawn began to stretch across the horizon. Mist hovered over the water like a thin sheet of silk, and the world began to glow faintly with that fragile, magical light that exists only between night and morning. I leaned against the window frame and whispered softly, almost to myself, "We're all just lanterns, aren't we? Trying to keep the flame alive a little longer." As the first bird began to sing, the light spread across the valley, touching rooftops, trees, and the quiet graves on the hill beyond town. It was not a haunting. It was a homecoming. I watched until the last shadow faded, until the candle's light became indistinguishable from the morning sun. Then, with a gentle breath, I whispered what Evelyn Blackwood always said at the close of her stories. As the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. Let go of the noise of the world. Let your thoughts quiet like ripples on a still lake. You are safe. You are home. You are light. The wind sighed softly through the open window, and the candle flame fluttered one final time before going out. The scent of smoke lingered in the air like a whisper of goodbye, and somewhere beyond the mist, a lantern glowed faintly, then disappeared into the rising dawn. And as I lay back, eyes heavy and heart light, I could still hear her voice, distant, loving, eternal. Rest now, dear one. The light will always find you. Dawn came softly, as if reluctant to disturb the quiet peace that had settled over the valley. The fog that had blanketed the lake through the night began to lift, revealing the old town once more in hues of pale gold and gray. The church steeple glistened faintly in the distance, its cross cutting through the morning light. Somewhere, a rooster called out from a distant farm, and the world seemed to exhale. I stood on the porch, a mug of warm tea cradled in my hands, watching as the last traces of mist curled and vanished above the willow. The air carried a chill, but not an unfriendly one, more like a gentle reminder that autumn was deepening, that change was near. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the usual ache that mornings brought. Instead, there was an unfamiliar lightness, as if the night had washed something heavy away. But even in that calm, a quiet curiosity lingered. Who was Clara before she became the Lantern Widow? What had bound her spirit so tenderly to this place? The stories passed down through the town had always been fragmented rumors. Whispers told by firelight, half believed and half feared. I wanted to know the truth, not the ghost tale, but the heartbeat beneath it. Later that morning, I walked toward the northern edge of town where Lantern Hill rose steeply behind the old cemetery. It was said that in the early days, before the railway and the mills, the hill had been the heart of the settlement. The remains of a crumbling foundation still stood there, a relic of a house long claimed by ivy and time. They said that was where Clara had lived. As I climbed the hill, the scent of pine and earth filled the air. Fallen leaves crunched softly beneath my boots, each step echoing faintly between the trees. The higher I went, the quieter the world became, until the only sound left was the whisper of wind threading through branches. When I reached the top, the view opened wide, the lake below shimmering like a mirror, the rooftops of town glinting through the thinning fog. For a long moment I stood there, feeling the pulse of history beneath my feet. The air felt thicker here, charged somehow, as if the hill itself remembered everything that had happened upon it. The remnants of Clara's home were little more than a stone outline now, but even in ruin, there was something deeply human in its silence, a place where laughter had once echoed, a place where grief had taken root. I knelt by what might have been a doorway once, brushing aside the moss that grew thick over the stones. Beneath it, I found something half buried, a small iron lantern, rusted with age but still intact. Its handle was bent, its glass fogged and cracked, but when I lifted it, a faint shimmer ran across the metal, like static caught in the morning sun. My breath caught. The hair shifted, the wind paused, and in that stillness I heard it, the faintest hum, like a woman's sigh carried on the breeze. I turned slowly, but no one was there. Only the willow trees far below swayed in rhythm with the water as a hintale pool. Yet the sound persisted, a low, resonant murmur, rising and falling like the breath of the earth itself. I closed my eyes and let it surround me. It wasn't frightening. It was familiar, soothing. It reminded me of the lullabies my grandmother used to hum, the ones she said her own mother learned from the hills. I realized then that the town is a ghost didn't belong only to one family. They belong to all of us, woven into our stories, carried in our names. The hum deepened, and with it came a flicker of something in my mind, a memory that wasn't mine. I saw Clara standing where I stood now, her hands clasped around the same lantern. Behind her, soldiers in blue marched through the valley, their boots sinking into mud, their faces hollow with exhaustion. A war had passed through here once. Lives had been taken, homes burned, promises broken. Clara had stayed behind when her husband never returned from the front. Every night, she lit her lantern and walked to the lake, waiting for his silhouette to appear in the fog. And when her body gave out one cold October night, her spirit didn't leave. It waited, still holding the light, not out of sorrow, but devotion. The vision faded like breath on glass. I opened my eyes to find the world unchanged, but my heart no longer was. The lantern in my hands pulsed faintly, with warmth, not a trick of light, not imagination, but something real, a reminder that love, in its truest form, doesn't fade. It lingers quietly, like a soft flame in the dark, guiding those who still wander. I stood there a while longer, the wind whispering around me, the first leaves of the day beginning to fall. Then I whispered softly, "I'll keep your light, Clara." The lantern flickered once in answer, and the sound that followed was not eerie. It was tender, like the sigh of someone finally at peace. As I descended Lantern Hill, The valley below seemed brighter than before. The town stirred to life, smoke rising from chimneys, voices calling faintly through the crisp air. Life and memory coexisted here, woven into one another. And as I reached the bottom of the path, I looked back once more at the hill, where the faintest shimmer of light still glowed among the ruins, steady and eternal. The sun had not fully risen, yet the town already hummed with the quiet stirrings of morning. From my window I could see the smoke curling lazily from chimneys, soft as the breath of the earth itself. I carried the lantern with me, feeling its faint warmth pulsing through my fingers, a tether to the past that seemed alive in its own quiet way. My path led me back toward the library, the place where the town's history was carefully folded into dusty tomes, the kind that smelled faintly of aged paper and memory. I wanted to know more about Clara, about the woman who had become the Lantern widow. Perhaps, I thought, her story had been recorded somewhere, hidden from the casual eye. The library was dim and welcoming, the air heavy with the comfort of accumulated years. Rows of shelves stretched in neat lines, lined with volumes whose spines carried the weight of countless stories, some told, many forgotten. I walked slowly between them, my boots whispering against the worn wood floor. It was here, tucked behind a stack of ledger books, that I found a small, leather-bound journal, its cover soft with age and the imprints of hands long gone. The name embossed in faint gold leaf read, Clara Wren. I settled into a worn armchair near the window and opened the journal carefully, the pages trembling slightly beneath my fingertips. The handwriting was elegant, flowing, and deliberate, with the faint smudge of ink that comes from writing with care and thought. I began to read, letting each word sink into my mind, feeling the pulse of her life through the careful cadence of her sentences. October 15th, 1920. The days grow shorter, and I find myself walking to the lake more often. The light must never go out. Samuel will return one day. No Italiano. I have kept the lantern burning for 3 nights, and the world has seemed kinder when I look upon its flame. I whisper to it, hoping it carries my words across the water, across time, across the distance between us. Her words resonated in a way that made my chest ache softly. I could feel her hope, her longing, the love that refused to diminish even in the face of absence. It was not just a personal sorrow, it was a devotion that transcended her own life, a tether connecting the living and the departed. October 31st, 1920, Halloween night. The town celebrates with costumes and laughter, but I see it differently. Each lantern I place on a window, each candle I light, carries more than my wishes, it carries remembrance. The children may not know why I linger by the lake, but perhaps they will understand one day. Perhaps someone will hear the song of the water, the soft hum of hope, and carry it with them when the lanterns fade. I paused, closing my eyes for a moment, allowing her voice to mingle with the quiet rustle of the trees outside the window. The world felt suspended, neither past nor present, only the tender space where memory and intention meet. Turning the pages slowly, I discovered more than longing. I found ritual and care, a gentle choreography of grief and healing. Each entry spoke of careful preparations, small offerings of flowers, written notes tucked inside lanterns, whispered prayers over the water. Clara had created her own sanctuary, a world within the world, where love was the only constant. November 2nd, 1920. I dream of Samuel often, not the boy he was, but the man he might have been. And when I wake, I carry the light of these dreams into the lake. I place the lantern where he would have walked, where his shadow might have rested. And in that moment, we are together, though the world insists otherwise. I felt my own breath slow, matching the rhythm of her writing. The words were not mere history, they were meditation, guidance, and comfort. I imagined her there on Lantern Hill, the soft glow of the lantern flickering against the mist, the reflection of her silhouette on the water. She was never alone, and in her devotion, she had invited the town to share her vigil, to keep her memory alive through simple, luminous histories. Closing the journal gently, I held it against my chest. The warmth of the leather pressed against me, and I felt a deep calm settle within, like the final note of a lullaby. Clara's story was no longer just a legend. It was living, breathing through every window lit by candlelight, every heart willing to remember, every soul attuned to the quiet rhythms of love that endure beyond absence. I whispered softly into the empty library, as if she could hear me through time. Your light has been found, Clara, and it continues to guide us. Outside, the wind stirred the trees, carrying the scent of rain and earth. I could almost hear the gentle hum of her voice, blending with the sounds of morning, a melody of hope and remembrance. And in that sound I found peace, not the absence of grief, but the embrace of it transformed into quiet, enduring warmth. As the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. Feel the weight of the day lift. Let your thoughts rest like leaves on a still pond. The light is always with you, as it has always been. Asterisk. The evening air had grown crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and burning wood. Lanterns glimmered along the cobblestone streets, cast in soft, golden pools of light that danced like liquid fire on the walls of the town. Tonight was Halloween, but unlike the boisterous celebrations I remembered from childhood, this festival had a quieter, more reflective rhythm. The townsfolk walked slowly, carrying candles and paper lanterns, their faces calm, almost reverent. Every step, every flicker of light seemed to hold intention, as though the lanterns themselves carried the weight of memory, hope, and remembrance. I wandered through the crowd, my own lantern cradled in my hands. Each home I passed had its windows aglow, and I could feel the subtle hum of energy rising from the lights. The festival wasn't about fright or mischief. It was about presence. The people remembered those who had been lost, those whose stories lingered like whispers in the night, and somewhere within that collective glow, I could sense Clara's spirit moving, guiding each flicker, each breath, each gentle murmur of care. Children wandered among the lanterns, their costumes simple and warm. They skipped over fallen leaves, their laughter soft and musical, blending with the faint rustle of the trees. Parents walked beside them, holding small candles or lanterns, their eyes filled with reflection. I noticed Mrs. Penfield from the bakery, placing a lantern carefully in the center of the town square. It glimmered like a tiny sun, its light steady and calm. Around it, dozens of lanterns formed a circle, each one a quiet promise, a story held in light. I followed the gentle hum of voices toward Lantern Hill. The path was lined with torches and small fires, their glow guiding us upward. At the top, the old willow tree stood tall, its branches swaying softly in the night breeze. The lake below mirrored the thousands of lights, transforming the water into a liquid sky of shimmering gold. Families paused along the shore, their lanterns reflecting in the rippling surface, creating a constellation that seemed both terrestrial and ethereal. I placed my lantern near the water's edge and knelt, letting its glow mingle with the others. The warmth of the flame seeped into my fingers, a reminder that even the smallest light holds power when shared. Then I heard it, the softest whisper, barely audible over the quiet murmurs of the crowd, Clara's voice, gentle and calm, drifting across the water. It carried no sorrow now, only the peace of completion and the soft joy of connection. Every light, it seemed to say, is a bridge between hearts. I closed my eyes, inhaling the crisp autumn air, letting the sound settle within me. Every flicker, every ripple on the lake, every breath of wind became a lullaby, harmonizing with the rhythm of my heartbeat. Around me, the townsfolk moved with intention, lighting candles along the paths, placing them on windowsills, and lowering floating lanterns into the lake. Each action was quiet, meditative, almost ceremonial. The festival had evolved over the decades not as a celebration of fear, but as a guided sleep meditation of remembrance, healing, and calm. The hum of lanterns, the soft movement of people, the gentle lapping of water against the shore, all of it worked together like a symphony of peace. I felt myself slowing, walking more deliberately, breathing in sync with the rhythm of the night. Memories of Clara's journal, her hope and devotion merged seamlessly with the living pulse of the town. The lake, the willow, the lanterns, they were no longer separate entities, but a single, intertwined experience. The warmth of the lanterns, the gentle glow of the firelight, and the quiet breath of those around me created a cocoon of calm, inviting the mind and heart to rest. Breathe deeply. Feel the lantern's light fill your chest. Exhale worry. Exhale fear. Exhale fatigue. As the festival continued, I noticed the children lying on the grass near the lake, watching the floating lanterns drift on the water. Their eyes were wide with wonder, their breaths slow and even. Parents rested beside them, guiding their focus toward the shimmering lights. Even in the chill of the night, the warmth of shared intention and gentle reflection was palpable. I walked to the edge of the lake, kneeling once more, and whispered softly, "Thank you, Clara. Your light lives on." The lanterns flickered in reply, not with movement, but with a feeling of presence. A single golden shimmer rippled across the water, as though acknowledging my words, and in that moment, I understood fully the festival was more than ritual. It was an invitation, an offering, a guided journey into calm, into remembrance, into the coziest, most magical sleep. As the night deepened, I turned back toward the hilltop, gazing at the 1,000 points of light stretching across the town and the lake. I let my body sink into the moment, letting go of everything that was not this gentle rhythm of breath, of flame, of quiet heartbeat. As the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep, Feel the warmth of the lanterns, the calm of the night, the magic of shared memory. You are safe. You are light. You are home. Asterisk. The town had quieted, the last of the lanterns drifting slowly across the lake, their golden light flickering softly against the gentle ripples. The festival had reached its calmest hour, the kind of peace that only comes when the world exhales after a long day of celebration. I walked along the water's edge, feeling the cool grass under my feet and the delicate rustle of leaves brushing against one another in the soft night breeze. The moon hung low, casting silver streaks across the surface of the lake, mingling with the lantern's fading glow to create a tapestry of light that felt both ethereal and grounding. I found a large stone at the water's edge and sat, wrapping my shawl around my shoulders. The warmth from the lantern I carried earlier had faded, but the calm it left in its wake lingered like a gentle pulse through my chest. I closed my eyes and drew in a slow, deep breath, letting the cool air fill my lungs. Then I carried scents of pine, damp earth, and faint smoke from distant hearths. Each inhalation seemed to carry a story, each exhalation a gentle release. The world had shrunk to the small circle of light around me and the quiet reflection in the water. The lake mirrored not only the lanterns and the moon, but also my own thoughts. In its surface, I could see fragments of memories, my own childhood, my family's laughter, and the times I had felt a profound sense of loss. I let those images drift across the water like fallen leaves, each one glowing faintly before settling into the calm below. Clara's presence seemed to hover nearby, a gentle reminder that reflection was not the same as sorrow. It was a bridge between what was gone and what remained, a quiet acknowledgement of life, love, and memory intertwined. I opened my eyes slowly and noticed a faint shimmer in the mist rising from the lake. It was delicate, almost imperceptible, like a pulse of warmth in the cool night air. As I focused, the shimmer seemed to take shape, forming the faint outline of a figure by the willow tree, a woman standing with a lantern in hand. Clara. She was not a ghost in fear or malice, but a presence of calm, her expression serene and inviting. She extended the lantern slightly toward the water, and I could see the reflections multiply, glowing with a soft, magical light that seemed to ripple through both space and time. I whispered softly, "I see you, Clara. I understand now." The words were barely audible, yet they carried a weight of gratitude and connection. In response, the figure nodded, and the shimmer of her form blended seamlessly with the night, leaving only the faint glow of lanterns reflected on the water. I let myself lean back, feeling the cool stone beneath me, and closed my eyes once more. The world around me became a gentle symphony, the subtle lap of water, the whisper of wind through the branches, the faint creak of distant wood. I felt the rhythm of the night pulse in harmony with my own heartbeat, and I let go, allowing myself to be carried into a state of mindful stillness. The lantern's glow, now diffused, seemed to settle inside me, filling the spaces where anxiety or tension might have lingered. Breathe slowly. Feel the calm of the night seep into your body. Let the lake reflect not only the light, but your own inner peace, In that space, memories and feelings that had once been heavy floated lightly. I thought of the townsfolk who had lit their lanterns, the children watching their tiny fires drift across the water, and the shared reverence that bound everyone together. Each lantern had been a story, a memory, a quiet meditation. And now, reflected in the midnight lake, each one seemed to echo a universal truth. Light persists, even in darkness. Love endures, even when absence lingers. I opened my eyes one final time, letting the moonlight and the residual glow of the lanterns wash over me. The willow swayed gently, the water rippled faintly, and the night hummed softly in harmony. I felt my body relax completely, every muscle releasing tension, every thought slowing to a serene cadence. The world had shrunk to this circle of light, this pulse of memory and hope, and I let myself sink fully into it. As the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. Feel the gentle pulse of the lake, the soft glow of the lanterns, and the tender presence of those who watch over you. You are calm. You are safe. You are light. The wind sighed through the branches above, carrying the faint echo of whispers and laughter. I rested there for a long moment, knowing that the calm I felt was not fleeting but eternal, woven into the very fabric of the night, the lake, and the heart of Lantern Hill. And as I finally leaned back, eyes heavy and spirit light, I drifted toward the deepest, coziest sleep, cradled by the magic of the midnight reflection and the gentle promise of the lantern. Widows, guiding light. Asterisk, the night deepened, and a soft hush fell over Lantern Hill. Only the gentle rustle of leaves and the faint ripple of the lake disturbed the stillness. As I walked slowly along the familiar path, the lantern in my hand casting a warm glow on the worn stones beneath my feet, I felt the quiet pull of something unseen, a presence that belonged not to the present, but to memory itself. Each step seemed to stir whispers from the past, faint echoes of laughter, of conversation, of small, intimate moments that had long since faded from sight. Lantern Hill held stories within its soil, within its trees, within the stones that lined its paths, and tonight it invited me to listen. I came to the base of the willow, its branches swaying gently in the night breeze. The lake mirrored the sky, a dark canvas punctuated by the golden dots of floating lanterns from the earlier festival. It was here that Clara's presence felt most tangible, not as a ghostly figure, but as a living memory, softly pulsing through the night. I knelt beside the water, letting the lantern's light reflect in the gentle ripples, and for a moment I felt as though the entire history of the hill had gathered around me. I closed my eyes and inhaled deeply, letting the sense of damp earth and pine fill my senses. In the silence, memories surfaced, not mine alone, but fragments carried by the land, the lake, and the wind. I saw glimpses of families long gone, their hands joined in laughter, their voices blending with the soft music of the night. I felt the sorrow of those who had waited, who had loved and lost, who had found solace in small acts of remembrance. Clara had been one of them, a woman who chose devotion over despair, whose heart had been anchored to both love and loss. As I leaned closer to the water, I noticed subtle movements beneath the surface shimmer here, A ripple there, not disturbing, not threatening, but gentle, as though the lake itself was breathing life into the memories it held. The lantern's glow danced across the waves, painting patterns of light and shadow that seemed almost sentient. I whispered softly, "Show me your stories, Lantern Hill. Let me feel the past, so I may honor it." The response was quiet, almost imperceptible at first, a faint hum, a vibration through the earth, a soft murmur that caressed my ears like the wind through autumn leaves. Gradually, images formed in my mind. Clara walking along the shore, a hand extended to the water, children running barefoot through the tall grass, their laughter catching in the lantern-lit night, families gathering around fires, sharing food and stories, passing down traditions that had survived decades. Every scene was infused with warmth, even in the presence of grief. The hill had held sorrow, yes, but it had also held the delicate threads of love, of care, of remembrance, woven quietly through time. I rose slowly, taking a tentative step toward the old foundation at the hilltop. The ruins seemed to vibrate with life, as though the stones themselves remembered the footsteps of those who had walked there long before me. I could feel Clara's devotion echoing through every brick, every broken window, every shadow cast by the lantern light. It was not haunting. It was present, steady, calm, enduring. Breathe in the calm. Exhale the tension. Let the lanterns guide you into stillness. I reached the edge of the ruins and set my lantern down, watching its reflection ripple across the lake. The wind carried soft whispers that could have been words or could have been memory itself. I let them wash over me, feeling the past and present entwine. The hidden memories of Lantern Hill were not meant to frighten or disturb. They were meant to soothe, to remind, to connect the living with those who had loved and waited long before. I knelt beside the lantern and closed my eyes, letting the cool night embrace me. I imagined Clara's hand guiding the flickering flame, her voice blending with the hum of the earth and the rustle of the willow. There was a rhythm here, a quiet pulse that aligned with my own heartbeat, a meditation in motion, an invitation to let go of the day's burdens and sink into peace. The shadows soft, the lake's surface shimmered like liquid silver, and I whispered one last time, "Thank you, Clara. Thank you, Lantern Hill." The air seemed to shimmer in response, a gentle affirmation, and I felt the warmth of the lantern pulse through me, carrying the weight of memory, love, and calm. As the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. Feel the gentle pull of memory, the warmth of the lantern, and the calm of the night. You are safe. You are remembered. You are light. The night stretched on, soft and endless. The lantern's glow mingled with the moonlight. The trees whispered softly, and the lake reflected all of it in a tapestry of quiet magic. I sat there a while longer, letting the hidden memories of Lantern Hill enfold me, readying my mind, my body, and my spirit for the deepest, coziest sleep imaginable. The night had reached its quietest hour. The town below Lantern Hill slept under a blanket of moonlight, the soft glow of lanterns fading gently into the distance. Only the faint rustle of leaves and the ripple of the lake broke the serene silence. I walked slowly along the hilltop, carrying the last remaining lantern with me, its light warm in my hands, a small pulse of calm in the cool autumn air. Each step felt deliberate, almost ceremonial, as if the earth itself guided me along the winding path toward the heart of the hill. I paused near the old willow tree, its branches swaying softly in the night breeze. Below, the lake mirrored the moon and the faint glimmers of the remaining lanterns, creating a seamless reflection of sky and water, past and present. I knelt beside a stone that had once marked the entrance to Clara's home, now crumbled but still sacred in its memory. Placing the lantern gently on the ground, I watched as its golden light mingled with the silver glow of the moon, rippling across the water and painting the night with a soft, magical shimmer. Closing my eyes, I breathed deeply, letting the rhythm of the night settle into my body. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying faint echoes of voices, long past laughter, lullabies, soft prayers. I felt the presence of Clara there, steady and calm, guiding the light of the lanterns, weaving her devotion into the very fabric of the hill. She was no longer a figure of sorrow or longing. She was peace incarnate, a reminder that love and care endure beyond absence, beyond time itself. Breathe deeply. Inhale, calm. Exhale, tension. Let the lanterns glow. Fill your heart. As I opened my eyes, the hill seemed to pulse softly, a living canvas of memory and emotion. The shadows of the willows stretched across the ground, blending with the lantern light to form patterns that felt intentional, almost like messages written in the language of calm and reflection. The lake reflected the gentle undulations, capturing the stillness of the night and amplifying it, inviting every observer to sink into serenity. I could feel the weight of years' joy, grief, hope, loss, all balanced delicately in this quiet, sacred space. The festival's essence lingered in the air. Though the townsfolk had returned to their homes, their shared presence had left an invisible imprint, a thread of connection that bridged generations. Every lantern that had floated across the lake, every candle placed along a windowsill had become a memory, a meditation, a moment of love preserved in the calm of the night. And now, in the stillness of the hilltop, it felt as if all those acts of remembrance were returning to the earth, to the lake, to the willow, completing a circle of peace. I knelt beside the lantern, letting the warmth seep into my fingers and up into my chest. I whispered softly, "Your light is eternal, Clara. Thank you for guiding us." The air seemed to respond. A gentle sigh of wind through the branches, a ripple across the lake, a soft hum that resonated through the stones and the soil. It was a lullaby for the hill, for the town, for anyone who had walked this path seeking solace and calm. The final moments of the night unfolded slowly, gracefully. The moon climbed higher, casting silver light across the valley. The stars sparkled faintly, their twinkle mirrored in the water below. Every breath, every heartbeat, every exhalation of the wind felt like a meditation, a guided journey into serenity. I leaned back against the cool stone, letting the quiet of the hill envelop me, the glow of the lantern reflecting softly in my eyes. My thoughts slowed, my body relaxed, and my spirit felt cradled by the gentle pulse of the night. As the story fades, allow yourself to drift into a peaceful sleep. Feel the calm of Lantern Hill, the warmth of the lanterns, the presence of enduring love. You are safe. You are remembered. You are light. I watched the lantern flicker one last time, its flame steady and true, a beacon of warmth and magic. The wind stirred, carrying the faintest echo of Clara's voice, a gentle reassurance that the light would never be lost. It lingered in the trees, across the lake, and in the hearts of those who had shared in the festival, a quiet, eternal glow that promised peace, comfort, and coziest dreams. Slowly, I rose, leaving the lantern in its sacred place. The hill was still, serene, and alive with memory. Every step down the path felt lighter, every breath easier, every thought softer. I knew that when I returned home, I would carry the calm of Lantern Hill with me, a steady, unbreakable light to guide me into sleep. And as I disappeared into the shadowed trees, the final glow of the hill remained, a gentle pulse in the night, waiting to welcome anyone who came seeking peace.